Hello and welcome to this episode of Star Wars Generations Podcast. Friends, we have some exciting news. As you've probably heard, there is a new Star Wars show coming out August 8th. I mentioned that we were just going to go to every other week until we have more content coming out. Well, it turns out we have more content coming out pretty soon. The ninth Jedi. So that's building off of one of the stories from the Star Wars Visions episodes. So we'll probably be bringing you some preliminary content about that and then going back to episode. But until then, we are still making our way through the Clone Wars. We are still talking about season 5, and we're talking about one of the most important Ahsoka arcs, where Ahsoka, her and the Jedi have some differing opinions about where she should be, and they kick her out, and then they want her back in, and she leaves on her own. You know, it's a real, like, did I break up with you? Did you break up with me? Ahsoka gets the last word. And of course, how could I ever talk about Ahsoka without mentioning the person? How could I ever talk about Ahsoka without bringing in Aaron? Aaron, we first met because you were a huge Ahsoka fan. You wanted to talk about Ahsoka on the podcast with me. You've been a fantastic co-host, but these episodes especially, I knew there was no way we're doing without getting into Ahsoka, without you on it.
Yes, yeah. These episodes, I've told multiple people today, these I consider some of the most important episodes of the Clone Wars. Yeah. Not even for Ahsoka, but also for Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like these episodes push him so much further away from the Jedi.
Yeah.
And it helps fill in some of the gaps between Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. To me, these episodes are essential for Ahsoka, for Anakin, and also just for the Jedi themselves, you know, and in terms of better understanding, I think both why characters in the world, and that's Anakin, but also a lot of the clones themselves and others, but also why we, the watchers, should be starting to really see that the Jedi, as good as they are in many ways, as important as they are in many ways, are really kind of lost, and how much they do not handle this well, really speaks to that, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So for those who don't remember these episodes, let me kind of give a quick summary. And of course, we're talking about season 5, episodes 17 through 20 of the Clone Wars. Those are called Sabotage, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much, To Catch a Jedi, and The Wrong Jedi. And it's a story in 4 parts with a couple of different tones. And if you haven't seen them, again, I'd strongly recommend pressing pause, go watch them. But if you just need to be reminded about them or just haven't seen them but really just want to hear us talk about it, fair enough. Here's the quick summary. So at this point, we are fairly far into the war. Ahsoka is still technically a Padawan, but has been given more and more authority. There are times where she gets to go and have her own mission. There are a number of clones who look to her. She's not a general, she's a commander, but still, she's not the fresh-faced kid from the academy anymore. She's someone who Rex and the others treat as a superior, and that they take orders from her and all that. And there's a bombing of the Jedi Temple, and some Jedi are killed, a number of non-Jedi are killed, and it stirs up a lot of questions about what happened and why did this happen. And we start with an investigation, and people start to look into this more, and pretty soon it starts to look like Ahsoka, that there's a lot of evidence that is pointing towards Ahsoka. And the story is very clear. The story is mostly told from Ahsoka's point of view. And so the story never lets us think that maybe Ahsoka did it. We see a scene where one of the most damning things that happens is that while Ahsoka is talking to a witness who might well incriminate her, the witness is killed, and is killed clearly through force usage, through force choking. And it's done in a way where Ahsoka's the only person in the room with them. This is one of the things that most makes everyone around them think that Ahsoka is the one who did this. And I really appreciate the way they show that, because instead of just showing us the results and then we're wondering, is Ahsoka really the one doing this? It's very clear that Ahsoka isn't doing it. And so we're supposed to know that it's not her, but we're supposed to understand why everyone else is against her.
Yeah.
Anakin's trying to defend her. Obi-Wan wants to defend her, but a lot of people are really not sure what to think. And eventually it gets to a point where, and here's one of these times where I understand what the point was trying to say, But when I think about it in our own terms, it feels a little different. We'll talk about that in a second, where basically the Jedi want to try her on their own, but the authorities, the police and the chancellor, and again, probably he has very mixed motives here because he wants to make this harder for Anakin very clearly. They insist that it is not right for the Jedi to try her themselves, and so because of the law that only the Jedi can like rule on a Jedi, they have to kick her out of the Jedi in order to do this. And in this situation where we know that Ahsoka is innocent, I think, of course, we're like, no, this is dumb. I think when I think about, members of the military or members of the police saying that we are the only ones who can investigate our own members, that doesn't really sound like a good idea. But it just kind of speaks to just how broken this whole system is, that the Jedi don't trust the authorities don't trust the Jedi, and that there's no way to put her on leave. There's no kind of, because it's not even thought of this would happen. So again, it's a system that breaks because it's so brittle. It doesn't have room to bend.
Yeah.
And so she is basically told she has to leave the Jedi. Anakin hates it, but goes along with it. And she realizes that the only thing she can do, she has to prove herself innocent, because or else she's facing some truly horrible punishment, possibly even execution. And so in the course of doing that, of course, her old friend Barriss Offee has been helping her this whole time. Barriss, we may remember, is another Padawan she was very close with, whose master was Luminara, and who, compared to Anakin and Ahsoka, they were always like, the perfect ones. Like, they always did everything by the book. Everything was perfect. And her and Barriss had some interesting interactions where, Barriss seems like a much better Padawan, but also Anakin and Ahsoka were able to go against the grain and think outside the box in ways that Barriss wasn't. And so they formed a good friendship. And it seems for a while like Barriss is really helping her. But eventually we come to realize, again, big spoilers, Barriss is actually the one who did the bombing. And here's another way where it's like a good indictment of the Jedi, and we'll talk more about this in a second. She gives the speech that I wish Pong Krell had given, whereas Pong Krell is just like, no, actually, I'm on the dark side. Wahaha. She is clearly going to the dark side, but she doesn't know it. Like, she really believes that the Jedi have lost their way. True. That this war is horrible and is bringing terrible chaos to everybody. True. And that the Jedi are complicit in that, and the Jedi have to be stopped. True. Like, she's on the right. She's one of those villains where it's like, she's killing innocent people. That's not cool. But every critique she makes of the system is straight up correct.
Yeah.
But so anyway, having proven that it's her and she gets everyone else to see it and acknowledge it, the Jedi are like, oh, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. We shouldn't have done this. And Anakin is very apologetic, especially. And he hands her back her lightsabers. And she, and especially actually, he tries to hand her back her Padawan braid. And there's this really beautiful scene where he offers it and she reaches out for his hand and then closes his hand around it and basically tells him goodbye. And that she has to walk away because she doesn't know what it means that the Jedi were willing to kick her out. And does she, part of it seems, is her own self-doubt, but a lot of it is also, the like, maybe I shouldn't be a Jedi, but also a lot of it's like, I don't want to run back to this organization that just kicked me out,
Yeah.
And I think it's very relatable, and it so there's so much about these episodes to talk about, but I think most importantly, for everyone who's been asking, if Ahsoka is so important to Anakin, why wasn't she there to stop him from falling to the dark side by the time of Revenge of the Sith? This answers that. This doesn't fill a plot hole. It is the answer to that question that's never really been a plot hole, because this was the answer, but it ties up that knot of this is why she and Anakin lost contact.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much in these episodes, especially for her, and I feel like her decision to not rejoin the Order, I mean, it's like you said, doubting herself a little bit, but honestly, I think she's lost so much trust in just the rest of the Jedi and the Order as a whole, really. Like, Anakin was like, why not? Like, I believed you. I never stood by. Like, I always stood by you. I never, failed you. And she's like, it's not about you and me, though.
Yeah.
like I gave my entire life to this order since I was literally an infant. I
Yeah.
have been here following everything, doing everything right. Like I have been an exemplary Padawan,
Mm-hmm.
and you have been a great master. And neither of us could control this situation. And the people who could have controlled it wouldn't have the trust or faith in me to like hear me out. And that I could see that being so devastating.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think that plays into her decision to walk away
Mm-hmm.
so much. It's just like the loss of trust and the hurt, like the genuine hurt. Because also it's like Master Plo, like the Jedi who found her. Like
Yeah.
it was everyone, and they apologized, but it's just they never stood up for her sooner.
Yeah. I think you're so right. And I think, when you, I'm glad you kind of pushed back a bit, because I think, yeah, saying that she lost trust in herself isn't quite right. I think it's more that, and granted, some of this comes from the Ahsoka novel, which is kind of questionable canonicity now, but I think still is important. But also some from these episodes and other later stuff we see. It's not that she questions herself, it's that she realizes that the validation she's always gotten for herself is from this organization she can no longer trust. And
Yeah.
so that's one more thing she's questioning. And I think a lot of what we will see in her season 7 arc, which we'll get to, is her sort of like wanting to find other ways to validate herself and to figure herself out and to say like, okay, I I can't trust the Jedi about anything, and part of that's about me. And so I need to figure out, how do I judge myself? Rather than just looking to Anakin's approval or Plo Koon's approval or
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's or the council's as a whole.
Yeah. I think that definitely has a big part of it is like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everything you find validation in is related to this thing that is now tainted and you can no longer trust. So it's understandable to have to walk away, and it's heartbreaking. And just like the last things that they say to each other, Anakin and Ahsoka, he says, like, I understand wanting to leave the Jedi Order more than you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she just says the classic Star Wars, like, I know.
Yeah.
And then just leaves. And it's like, damn. Like, I believe she knew/knows about Padme.
Yeah. I think so too.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think she may not know the details. She may not know that they're married, etc., or that later the kids are on the way. No, that all happens after she leaves. But yeah, I think she definitely knows that the two of them are together. I think she doesn't even think it's a Satine Obi-Wan's. I think she thinks that he has stepped over the line that Obi-Wan never
Yeah,
stepped over,
absolutely.
and that's
Yeah.
what she means. And I think you're right that a large part of it is her recognition that as much as her master trusts her and has her back, that he can't stop it. But I do think there's also some level of disappointment in him, and in part because, and like, I don't think she would ever say this directly, because I think she would say this is unfair to think of him, but I think it's a part of it. You know, he is placed in a situation where on some level he has to choose between her or the organization. He could leave the Jedi with her. He could say, no, this is not okay. If you kick her out, I'm going too. And he doesn't. And he protests against the decision, but on some level he's trying to get her to accept it and then trying to get her to come back. And I think there's some level of her I don't think she's disappointed in him in any way she's disappointed with the other Jedi, but I think there is some level also he's kind of fallen down a little bit more off the pedestal for her. A little more to he's not the master way up high. He's someone who is just as flawed and just as, broken as me and everybody else in this, and I still really admire him, but he's just human too. And I
Yeah.
need to look to other people instead of looking to him always for guidance.
Definitely. Anakin is certainly fallible,
Mm-hmm.
as
Definitely.
she has learned throughout the years of being his Padawan.
Definitely. What I know, as someone who was watching the show and a huge Ahsoka fan from the beginning, do you remember how you felt watching these episodes for the first time?
I was so scared she was like gonna die. I was so scared. I mean, the entire like 4th and 5th season, I just like got this fear because I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna tie it up. And when they did tie it up this way, I just remember like, because I watched the episodes on the computer at the time because I didn't have like Cartoon Network on the TV, but you could watch it on the website. So I was watching it in front of the computer, and I just remember like crying and being like, I understand they had to do it, but there must have been a less painful way.
Yeah.
Like this was so heartbreaking and so sad. So cool though. She did so many cool things. And I love the connection she made with Ventress. I was
Mhm.
also pretty devastated that my girl Barris just got thrown under the bus. I mean, not thrown under the bus because her character arc is logical and
Mhm.
she has a lot of good points, like you pointed out. Like her critiques are correct and valid. Um, but it's just such a bummer because that was my favorite episodes before, these later seasons came out. My favorite episodes I always wanted to go back and watch over and over and over were the Geonosian brain worms. Like the
Yeah.
one with her and Barris on the ship, and then also them, getting stuck under the droid factory. Like I just loved their friendship so much. Like, oh my gosh, she has like a little friend. They're such a cute duo, like two little alien girls. Um, and so yeah, when I saw
What race is
her,
Barris, by the way? Do you know?
um, I do know she's. Can I just pull it out of the air? Fuck, it's failing me.
Miralon.
Thank
She's a
you.
Miralon female.
I'm like, I have considered cosplaying this species before. Yeah, so I just loved the duo of the two of them so much. And when she popped back up, at the Jedi funerals after
Mhm.
the first episode, maybe in the first episode,
Yeah.
I was so excited. I was like, she's back. Oh my God, they're still friends. Like, I love this. And when Anakin was like, Anakin, told Ahsoka, go be with your friend. Like, go talk to Bear. She's clearly upset. She was close with one of the Jedi who was
Yeah.
killed. I was so excited to see them back together and get more of Barris. And I was like, is this going to be another fun adventure? And then it was just like her downfall. And I was like, damn, I guess that's what happens when you don't check on a character for like 2.5 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Crazy
mean,
shit goes down.
like you said, it's sad because we like that character a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate to like have that character end. But also, although of course the character does come back in later video games and stuff, but
Mm.
like you said, it made total sense, and it's to me. I mentioned this idea before, but I want to go into a little more detail. Like, there's this idea of like, you know, if you're willing to bend, it's actually a lot harder for you to break, and it's easy for you to be like, okay,
Yeah.
here are the rules, but sometimes the rules don't really fit, and I've got to like find something that, find a way to like bend the rules a little bit to make it all work. And maybe you're not playing by the straight and narrow, but you also can fit the unexpected into your scenarios.
Mm.
And you're really brittle and you're really like, no, everything has to be by the book. When something isn't by the book, it isn't in the book, it breaks, and
Yeah.
terrible things can happen. And I think we saw that a couple of times before with smaller characters. Dogma for me is one where we definitely get that same kind of idea. The
Yeah.
one who during the Pong Krell episodes is like he just can't get behind going against orders, even though the orders are
Mhm.
clearly wrong. And I think that's very much who Barra Sophie is. And I think it makes total sense that, of course, this is the kind of reaction she would have, and that probably a lot of the Jedi's have, because she is. There are all of these contradictions, the peacemakers who are war leaders, the protectors of life who are ordering clones to their death because, you say,
Mhm.
okay, this group of clones has to charge and suffer terrible casualties so this other group can take the objective or whatever it is. And the idea that, like, in some ways, I more respect Barris for being the person whose mind can't just say, you know what, this is against the ideals we were taught, but it's expedient, so I have to do it. Her
Mhm.
brain is just like, no, this is wrong. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And so for her to make the turn she does, like, it's wrong and it's terrible, but it makes total sense. And I respect the way her brain gets her there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a really good way to kind of break it down and put it. And I was talking with Barris actually with my therapist earlier today because I was so excited about the
Mhm.
episodes when I got there. I was like, yo, but I think she's such like a empathetic and deeply emotional character.
Mhm.
And what Barris originally was in her first concept, she showed up in Attack of the Clones at the Genosha Coliseum with Luminara. Um, and so she's quite a bit older than Ahsoka, well, a few years. But she was always really great with like the Jedi healing.
Mm-hmm.
And she would do that for, townspeople, for clones, whoever may need it. And she
Right.
really didn't do as much of the battling at the start of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like I kind of see myself in that to an extent because I'm also deeply emotional. I would consider myself to be empathetic. Like I'm going into nursing. I want to heal people and help them be better. And so I can't imagine being like emotionally in that situation and
Yeah.
then being paired with a master like Luminara who like it just comes off as a very cold, distant mother.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
in those episodes you mentioned, or no, maybe a different arc with them, but like there's a scene
no, it
where,
is those.
yeah, where Barriss and Ahsoka make this great sacrifice to destroy the factory, and it looks like they probably died. And Luminara is, in the kind of Jedi, like there is no emotion, there's only peace. She's sad about that, but she's not broken up, and she's not like, oh my god, I have to do anything I can to fix it. She accepts that Barriss died and is willing to move on. And Anakin's like, no, if there's even the slightest chance, we have to try and save them.
Yeah.
And of course, it turns out he's right. And that's a moment where, in that moment, she is absolutely better following the Jedi code.
Definitely.
And the Jedi code's bullshit in that moment, Like you said, it's like being willing to accept the death of, what's supposed to be basically your kid in that moment. And I can see Barriss is deeply surprised when they come for her. Like, I don't think she would be at all surprised that Luminara has that attitude towards her.
Yeah, not at all.
But what does that tell you? Is that she sees Ahsoka like having, it's one of those things where like you can tell yourself, like, no, it's really good that my parents are disciplinarians because they're pushing me to be harder. And I'm better because of that. And then you see someone else whose parents are much nicer to them and like buy them ice cream a lot more. And you might say, well, they're not as good at math as I am, but maybe they actually are kind of happier. Like I can totally see that it's way at Barriss in parts. And again, it's in parts that she doesn't want to accept and doesn't want to talk about. And guess what? Repression is bad.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in that episode where they're trapped under the droid factory, I believe her and Ahsoka actually have a conversation where Ahsoka's like Anakin's gonna come for me. How can we signal them? This and that.
Yeah.
And Barriss was kind of like, no, girl, like we're fucked. Like it's over for us. Like that's just the way it is. We made the sacrifice. We knew this could happen. And Ahsoka's like, yeah, but like don't give up hope. Like there's still a chance. We're still breathing.
Yeah.
Currently, so let's do something. And Barriss is like a little slow to come around to the idea because she very much, mirrors Luminara and has been taught that that's like, and to be taught that you're to an extent disposable, like people will not really mourn you when you're gone.
That's rough.
And at such a young age, like that's really devastating. And I just want to bring up another thing about Barriss's character where I find her so like deeply emotional and to put others first which is how I think she got to where she got is being that type of a mindset and person. But in the episodes with the Geonosian brainworms, at the end, as Ahsoka's trying to freeze all the worms out of people because the worms can't operate in the cold, and Ahsoka's in her little tube top and she's freezing cold. And Barriss comes after her with the worm, and Ahsoka cuts some sort of a vent and blows a bunch of cold air in her face, and it causes the worm to start crawling out of Barriss's mouth. And in a moment of lucidity, she literally begs Ahsoka to kill her.
Yeah.
She's like, I will like kill you. I can't stop. Like, please just kill me.
Right.
And then we don't see what happens next until they're found by Kit Fisto at this medical center. And it's just like, to be taught at such a young age that you're so disposable and that is the best solution. Like I don't think it's like, oh, I want to die kind of thing, but it's just like this is what would be the easiest.
Yeah.
And my life doesn't have value.
Yeah.
But others have the most value. And then to see others just constantly put in danger, and now you're in a position where you're supposed to be putting others in danger as well. It just like kind of what you're saying. I feel like it just kind of broke.
Yeah. And shifting off of Barriss for a second, I think the fact that it is Barriss who does all that is so essential for Ahsoka's character. And again, why she makes the decision she does, because not by Anakin, but by everyone else, and certainly by Barriss herself in some ways, Barriss is like the role model that Ahsoka was supposed to be living up to. You know, this is the perfect Padawan that Ahsoka's kind of like, well, I don't think I could be her, and I don't really want to be. And Anakin certainly doesn't want me to be, but part of me is always going to feel a little like, yeah, okay, well, I know that I'm not, she's the prize pupil, and that's not me. And now to look at how badly she breaks this person who is a much closer embodiment of the Jedi ideals, who is much more, who had a master who was much more in line with what the Jedi were supposed to be. Again, I think how could you see that and not question the Jedi deeply and not think maybe these people aren't the moral paragons and the people I should be following if this is what happened to the person who was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great point. It matters who Barriss is to Ahsoka. When I was watching it through this time, I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, Barriss girl, like I get where you're coming from. I get if you decide this is the way you want to do it. But could it have been literally any other Padawan, like not your girl? Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously, Ahsoka's like one of the main characters, so that's just how, and like we said, it fits into the story so beautifully. But like from a friend perspective, it's just, I think what you're saying about like, yeah, Ahsoka looking at that and being like, wow, like we were really friends. And you went to the point of like, I trust nobody. It doesn't matter. I will literally attempt to get the person that has been the closest to me peer wise killed. Because Barriss knew that Ahsoka, I mean, she was new or hoping that Ahsoka would be killed in the chase somehow. Because then Ahsoka can't tell the truth or keep fighting.
Yeah.
And then was hoping she would be sentenced to execution because that was on the table when she went to trial under the Senate.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is, I've talked at other points in this podcast about how I love the ideology of the whole idea of the light side and the dark side, but sometimes I'm frustrated when even Star Wars itself, but also Star Wars fans, treat it a little too literally. And like it's like the switch goes off at you. And I think there are definitely people who are walking the path of the dark side and don't realize it. And to me, Barriss is 100% that, because you'd think like if she's thinking things through to her morals and her values, she would stop and think about that and be like, should I do this to Ahsoka? But the fact that she's willing to sacrifice Ahsoka as part of this, not to mention the other Jedi she kills, it's that like any sacrifice is worthwhile if it fulfills the goal that I have convinced myself is right. And it's the, it's part of why I find Palpatine such a boring villain. A villain who thinks they are evil and thinks they're the villain and just wants to laugh maniacally. Yes, there are those people every now and then, but the vast majority of people, and this is everyone from the ex who broke your heart to Hitler, are people who probably think they're the hero of the story. Yeah. And either because they're massively misinformed or they're incredibly hateful and just letting that hate blind them to the evil they're doing, or narcissistic, or any kind of thing like that, whatever it is. Narcissistic is adjective, not to say narcissistic personality disorder. Those folks, it is a real thing, but more likely to hurt anybody than anyone else. But yeah, like that to me is a much more interesting villain, and I think that's exactly where Barriss is here.
Yeah,
and you can see why that would shake Ahsoka so thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting, like you were just saying, because I think I get why they don't let us know that it's Barriss for so long, because they want to make it a big sort of gotcha surprise moment. And so it's probably better they didn't do any of that to suggest. But part of me wishes that there'd been a little more of Barriss kind of thinking to herself, Ahsoka might agree with me. And like, can I maybe bring Ahsoka along in this? And I remember at the funeral, Barriss says one or two things that feels like, not that she's in any way saying the bombing was justified or like, look, I did it, but it feels like she's a little bit testing the waters with Ahsoka to see just how dedicated is Ahsoka to the Jedi. And when she hears Ahsoka being like, no, this is terrible, they killed Jedi, that's not okay, she kind of backs off.
Yeah, she's like, never mind. Yeah, because Barriss has reached the point of her thought process, idealism, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
where lives don't matter.
Right.
Like casualties don't matter. She literally spoke about being quote unquote close with one of the Jedi who were killed. Like,
yeah,
if you were if in the, yeah, that's like similar to how she treats Ahsoka, where it's like, I feel like there's multiple ways a villain can be. You know, you can decide
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm gonna be a villain. People will have to get hurt, yes, but let me do like as few people as possible to make a statement or make sure that nobody I care about is gonna be there. But to like kill and attempt to kill and torment like several of the people that are supposed to be very close to you, that's a completely different type of villain that I think what you're saying, like in their mind, is not a villain. They
Right.
think they're the hero. Everything is justified, everything makes sense, and it has to be those important characters in your life so that it means more.
Right. Exactly.
You know, something like that.
No, I think it's exactly true. I think that's exactly, to me, that's what the dark side is. It's literal
Mhm.
darkness in that it clouds you and it makes you think, you're motivated by anger, by hate, by lust, by jealousy, by fear, whatever it is. Look at our own world. Like, if you are afraid of a group of people or a person, it's a lot easier to dehumanize them. It's a lot easier to think terrible things about them. It's a lot easier to believe whatever myths and lies are being told to you about them. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what Palpatine takes advantage of, and all the rest. Which brings me to a question. I've seen some people argue that clearly Palpatine must have been behind this, and he must have like groomed her towards the dark side. I don't think so, and I think it would actually have made the story worse if that were directly the case. What's your take on this?
So I do not think Palpatine had influence over Barriss directly. I don't
Mhm.
think it was any sort of like, ooh, maybe he'll be an assassin for me necessarily. But I do believe like there were definitely times throughout these episodes where I was watching them today where I was like, oh, he's loving this. Or
Oh, yeah.
he's like going in a little extra on a certain thing to make something a little more like he did not have to do the whole expulsion thing.
Yeah.
You know, like that is completely on him. Like if he wouldn't have brought it up so aggressively, I mean, yeah, Tarkin kind of was also campaigning for it,
Mhm.
but I think Palpatine pulled strings post-operatively to make it as messy as possible and
Yeah.
direct it towards Anakin. I don't think that he had any part of like the nanobots or the original like terrorist attack or
Mm.
even like contact with Barriss or any sort of directing.
I think a lot of times with a master manipulator like Palpatine, people wanna think he's literally in control of every single thing that happens. And
Mhm.
I don't think it's accurate. I think what is much more likely in our own world and in the Star Wars world is he's kind of planting seeds. And he's sort of like he probably expected that the situation he's putting the Jedi in, some Jedi is gonna break, maybe more
Oh,
than,
absolutely. Yeah.
and that he's gonna be there and ready to capitalize. And he probably had a suspicion that Barriss might be one of them, and it's like, "Oh, well, that would be a bonus because then maybe I could do something with that." And
Mhm.
when he sees the way it plays out, he immediately realizes, "Oh, hey, if I kind of push this along and use it as a way to break the connection between Ahsoka and Anakin, that puts him 2 or 3 more steps towards me, so that's great." I think
Mhm.
it's opportunistic. He didn't create this he created the situation in which something like this happening is a lot more likely, and then when it did, he quickly figured out, "Here's how I can capitalize on this. Here's how I
Yeah.
can force a confrontation between Ahsoka and the Jedi that Anakin will feel caught in the middle of and thus feel trapped by, and oh no, he'll come to me."
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
But I totally agree that saying Palpatine, was behind it does a lot of diminishing to the character of Barriss
yeah, it takes away
and
her agency.
her whole message, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I believe that Pong Krell thinks that there's a Sith Lord and he wants to go find him. I don't think Barasafi thinks that, at
Yeah.
this point in time. So, all right, well, that's pretty much all I had about these episodes. Any other big topics you want to get into or quotes you want to discuss?
Um, let's see. Let's talk about Ventress and Ahsoka for a little bit and kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
the moments of connection that they had, because I also love that whole thing. I mean, I love Ventress. I loved seeing her back as a bounty hunter, and I loved the way that Barriss played that situation. Because if Ahsoka had been helped by Bosk or Boba Fett, like just say somebody else, Barriss could not believably, physically embody that person to then attack Ahsoka in secret later.
Right.
And so I loved that when Barriss, attacked Ventress, knocked her out, took her mask, took her sabers, and then attacked Ahsoka with them, it was believable that it could have been Ventress. And the fighting style, like it kept up. It was really, I don't know. I loved the way the three of them kind of like danced around that whole situation and kind of scene and afternoon. But I also just love, those are like three of my favorite female characters in the Clone Wars show. Like,
no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I agree. I love that whole interaction. And a part of it's because I really like situations where people who are kind of mirror images of each other are forced to like each take a few steps towards the middle and meet each other in the middle. Because in many ways, Ventress is the kind of like other side version of Ahsoka. Ahsoka is introduced as the Padawan to Anakin. Ventress is more experienced and more mature, but is in many ways the equivalent of a Padawan to Count Dooku. And it's kind of often being used as a second. And they've had a lot of clashes, and they've had a lot of hard things. And then both of them have been kicked out of their respective institutions. And when they meet, it's before they offer Ahsoka the chance back. So, she feels like she's been betrayed by the Jedi. Ventress at this point still feels, Dooku kicked her out of the Sith, and she's had these attempts to kill him, and they've all failed. And both of them have had to start questioning, the Sith ideology or the Jedi ideology, and wondering, like, are things as extreme as my side has been telling me to believe? And so setting up this situation, in many ways, this is a very classic kind of buddy cop idea, where you've got one person who is very much like the good guy and is everything straight by the book, and someone else who's either like the very loose cannon cop or even the criminal who's having to like team up with the cop or whatever. It's a classic trope. It's a very good one. And I just thought it was so fun that they were together. And I'll be honest, I kept part of me hoped this would be a spin-off with those two, or that we get more episodes of these two together. And we get a little bit of it, but I will maintain that I think that is one of the great lost opportunities of having Ahsoka and Ventress work together more during this time when Ahsoka was kind of lost in finding herself, which it's great TV. Like, they're hilarious together. Yeah. They bounce off each other well. They both teach each other things as they both try to like learn to see things beyond their own perspective. It's just great.
They're both just quippy sass masters.
Very much so.
It's like, I mean, Ventress flirts with literally anyone who breathes. Yes. And Ahsoka can certainly keep up with her speed of jabs and whatnot. And I loved how when they were surrounded by the clones, Ahsoka's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. We're not gonna hurt you, actually. And like looks at Ventress, she's like, bro. And excuse me, Ventress whips out a lightsaber. Her lightsabers. Ahsoka's like, I don't want to fight. And Ventress is like, I do. And then they just beat the shit out of some people, and Ventress chooses to like disarm by cutting the guns rather than actually kill anyone with a lightsaber or maim anyone. Didn't even maim anybody.
Yeah.
And then they kind of finished the fight. Yeah, and she made some quip to Ahsoka about like, didn't kill anybody. Told you.
Look at me. Look at me on the good and narrow.
I'm growing.
Definitely. Yeah, they're just so fun. I think the voice actresses for both are great. And I hope that as we explore more different parts of this timeline that we'll see a little more of those two interacting.
Yeah, that would be the dream, honestly. Dream team.
Very much so. Before we hit any last things, I also just want to quickly say, many of you have heard Paul Hoppy, my good friend, and often co-host or guest on this podcast and on other podcasts. He has just published a book called Friday Night is My Monday Morning. He says that because he plays poker for a living, and so Friday night is when the start of his work week. It's a collection of essays as well as poker analysis, so that one part of the book is really interesting, like learning more about poker itself. But a lot of it's also about like life lessons from poker. And like he talks about, how to start new projects and how to deal with defeat and how to, not, how to learn from your results without letting variance kind of convince you of bad things and stuff like that. It's a great little book. I really recommend it. This is volume 1, and you can buy it through this podcast. You'll get like a 40% discount. And also we, the podcast, will get some of that support. So that's what helps to keep us in microphones and hair dye and all the good things that are required to make, not hair dye, but me and Aaron do try to, spruce ourselves up for you all. And yeah, so you get to save money, you get to throw some money our way, you get a great book. All that information is in the show notes. Please find that link, click on that link, and make the purchase because I think you'll really enjoy it. So with that, Aaron, now any last, you're right, that was a big one that we definitely needed to cover. Any other last smaller topics though?
I don't think so. I just ripped to all the clones that got caught in the middle.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a sad story. And I think that's the dark side part of like Barris is horrified as what's happening to the clones and how they're being treated, but she becomes the worst because she's willing to like use them as cannon fodder and see them die as part of all this.
Yeah. Literally use them to set someone up.
Yeah. Here's actually a question though.
Okay.
Do you think Barris had any thought that, in kind of a, like, you put someone in a really bad situation so that they break bad the way you did? Do you think Barris might have thought, if I frame Ahsoka for this, then she'll hate the Jedi as much as I do and join up with me?
I wonder if there could have been, some thought to it initially.
Yeah.
But I think she has to understand, like, once Ahsoka's captured, like, if she goes to trial and goes to jail, like,
it's over.
Kind of, like, she's stuck. Like, even if she were to escape, I doubt that would be a path to the dark side.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that was a thought process. I think at this point, Barris is a little bit too, like, tunnel vision, one-minded, and, like, almost selfish in a way.
Yeah, I think so.
Because she selfishly needs everyone else to feel and understand the pain and horror and confusion she's been feeling.
Right.
Rather than just explain it.
And she's not really willing to, she's not willing to make the noble sacrifice. She's not a suicide bomber. She's not willing to stand up and have her day in court and say, yes, you're going to execute me. That's fine. But I want everyone to know this is what I did. She actively tries to frame Ahsoka. And I think that's, again, there's a hypocrisy there. And that's the point, Yeah. She thinks she's doing this brave and noble thing, and she's not.
Yeah, absolutely not. Oh, Barris, my queen. I need to go watch her episodes of Tales of the Empire now.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Aaron, thank you all so much. Aaron, thank you so much for this. Any last quotes you have to take us out?
Yeah, just my finishing quote, which is actually, no, sorry. There's one more thing that I have to mention.
Please do.
Just Anakin's aura when he goes to question Barris, like walking in the room and immediately force grabbing her lightsaber. There we go with words. So she doesn't have a weapon to like force her to use the other sabers if she has them. Like, it was just like the aura, also very dark side, not very Jedi at all, but like so cool. And my favorite is literally this quote, he says, Ahsoka trusted you. And Barris says, I've learned that trust is overrated. The only thing the Jedi Council believes in is violence.
Yeah.
And then Anakin ignites a second lightsaber to show her how much the Jedi Order does not believe in violence.
Yep. You're wrong about thinking we're so violent, and I'm going to throw you around and torture you to prove that. Exactly.
I'm going to smash you into a tree so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Aaron, thank you so much. I'll let you close us out with our quote after I do my closings. But for everyone listening, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts. As I mentioned before, we are going to every other week, but that's only going to be for like one more episode, and then we'll be back to full episodes for The Ninth Jedi. We'll probably give you a background episode leading into that. But until then, please check out all the other episodes on the website. If you go to theethicalpanda.com, you'll find this podcast as well as my other podcast, Superhero Ethics. In the show notes, as I said, you'll find all the information about Paul's book. You'll find all of Erin's awesome cosplay and like all the great stuff that she's doing. Alex, who is unfortunately busy with work right now and can't join us. He is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, photojournalist, does fantastic work. Check out all of his stuff. All that's on the show notes. You can just Google their names. But most importantly, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And as someone who, like the Jedi, believes in fairness and justice, and that even athletic events should be played fairly, stay classy, Belgium.
The only thing the Jedi Council believes in is violence.
Violence.
Belgium? The hell did Belgium do? Like, I'm sure it's FIFA related, but damn, I haven't seen that yet.
So after Trump like was horribly corrupt to get an American unsuspended, Belgium kicked the ass of the team.
Oh, so it's like slay Belgium.
Yeah, it's like go Belgium because you